So, what's up, guys? My name is Chance Crump, and I kind of have an idea, and this idea is probably gonna piss like a lot of the people that know me and are related to me off because they don't quite understand my method of thinking in this exact situation. But I'm sure like a lot of people have seen that show, God, what is it? It's like the Undercover Billionaire, where the dude who owns like a loan company went to like a random fucking place in Pennsylvania and got dropped off with like barely any money, and he had to work his way up into making or having a company that was worth $1 million by the end of 90 days. Well, my idea for that is to use the strategies he talked about in that show and apply this to my life. And as you can see, like, I'm crashing in the car right now, pretty much starting off the same way he did with absolutely nothing. Like, I've got my clothes and I don't even have a job at this particular moment, and I don't have a house to stay in. Like, this is just where I'm at in life right now. I'm just kind of crashing in a car in the middle of winter in North Carolina. And I don't know, the idea just occurred to me, like, if this dude could do it and become a millionaire or a billionaire and then give up all of his resources and connections and then go make $1 million company just on the fucking fly, literally because another rich person bet him that he couldn't, or that he could, one way or the other. Uh, why can't I? I mean, it's obviously something he had done, like, from a young age to begin with, and it's kind of funny to me because, like, a lot of the strategies that he uses is pretty much synonymous with stuff like, sorry guys, it was getting windy, but it's pretty much synonymous with stuff that people just do to get by where I live in North Carolina, in the Bible Belt, more specifically Caldwell County in North Carolina, which, if anybody has ever been here or lives here, this is a very poverty-stricken county since all the furniture factories went overseas in the early 2000s. And, like, personally, that I remember that very fucking well because my grandparents worked in the furniture factories, and you know, growing up, like, I didn't think we were as wealthy as we were, given the fact that, they worked really hard every day. But that was before 9/11 and the recession. Like, I can remember in the late 90s, like 1998, 1999, a little bit from 1997. Like, I can remember my first birthday. So, I can remember, like, just the differences, like the very subtle differences. Like, we stopped going on vacations as often once the furniture jobs left, and like, it was just like, I knew what it felt like to change class, because we went from being very middle class. Like, I remember having the Nintendos. I never personally had a Nintendo 64 because they had already lost their furniture factory jobs, so we weren't in that tier of people anymore. But I mean, I remember having like the first PlayStation to come out, the original Game Boy, like the one that didn't flip up. It was just like that weird grayish blue, and like, you couldn't play it when it was too bright or too dark because there was no screen brightness adjuster on that one. And there was just a lot of things that I remembered changed very drastically. And I'm actually not new to homelessness. My very first experience with homelessness came in elementary school, actually, because my my house burned down during my Christmas play, and there was a lot of allegations like between the family. Like, I don't want to put all this out there on the internet, and I especially don't want to say names, but a family member basically broke into mine and my grandparents' house while I was at my Christmas play and proceeded to steal everything of value. And sorry, it was a car passing. Sometimes that shit sketches me out. But like, he stole everything of value and then burned down our house to hide the evidence that he had stolen everything, which anybody who's dealt with a situation similar to this knows. Like, he didn't really hide the evidence. He just burned our house down and stole our shit. Like, fire marshals aren't stupid, and when you have like one of those like 5 foot tall train light piggy banks that's full of like nothing but silver coins and some pennies here and there, uh, you know, a house burning down is gonna melt that. And you're gonna have a huge pile of just molten metal at the end of it, which they didn't find. And anyway, well, that was my first experience with homelessness. The second time I had to deal with that, it was with my dad, because my mom's brother kicked us out like a week or two before Christmas. And oh god, I hope you're watching this, Ronnie, because I still fucking hate you for that shit. But that was just a whole big deal. And like, I kind of get his side later in life, because I was a freshman when he kicked us out. I was a freshman in high school, and it was a new high school, because I didn't go to the first off, my elementary and middle school were the same school. It went kindergarten through 8th grade, and then you would go to high school, clearly. But I I went to pretty much the only school that was like that in my county. So, I was around the same, let's say, 90 kids that I related with and talked to for the whole 9 years. Well, I guess starting at around 2nd grade, because I befriended a lot of kids in the younger class, and I befriended a lot of kids in the older classes, mostly due to like the middle school stuff like band. God, there's not a day that goes by that I don't miss band and like my middle school and elementary school friends. But as you can tell from watching this, I've got a lot going on in my life. Basically, long story short, like, I mean, I just want out of situations like this. This last time with me being homeless, I've been homeless a couple times by choice, because me and my family don't really click, especially my adoptive family. They're from, like, to put it in perspective, my sister from my adoptive family is in her 50s. So she can't relate to essentially anything I've ever went through at any period in my life. You know, in the 90s, when, sorry guys, that's my cat. But essentially in the 90s, when the furniture factories and everything were picking up and going to China, um, this town was considered the furniture capital of the world. And, you know, my sister never worked in any furniture factories. She always had office jobs, which just kind of furthers the distance in between the scopes of life that we're used to living. And everybody, this is my cat, Hemlock, or Devi. I found her like last week, actually stuck in a hemlock tree. um, More on that later. That'll be a separate video. But you know, my sister doesn't know anything about what it is to be from this generation. She is essentially a boomer. So, you know, and she's watched me struggle quite a lot because I moved in with my sister after my grandfather died, or he got dementia, and he died not very long after I moved in with my sister. But you know, as a 17-year-old, that just wasn't. You know, I had to finish high school. I mean, you can't expect a teenager to drop their life and take care of their grandparent when that would cost them their education and little diva. But you know, that would just cost me everything at that point in my life. And it, sadly enough, like, it still cost me everything at that point in my life because when my grandmother died, she set up her will so that me and my adopted brother would get the land and the house as soon as we turned the legal age, as long as it stayed in her name. But somewhere along the lines, like, you know, obviously she died, and you can't keep something in your name once you're dead. Not legally, anyway, especially not in this state. Maybe in other states you can. I don't know how that works. As long as it gets paid, I really don't see why there should be a big deal as long as the same family is making those payments. But you know, he passed away, and he never wrote a will to mirror that, saying that me and my little brother got the land. So the state took over, and it was just divided amongst all of my grandparents' children, basically. And I wasn't actually adopted. He just had guardianship of me. So, you know, my entire life, like pretty much almost into my 20s, I was told, like, hey, yeah, you're going to inherit this piece of land. You're going to get the trailer, and you're pretty much going to have at least the means to, like, if you wanted to, just sell all the lumber off of it, rent out one of the trailers that were on it, and there's you some passive income to start your life with. Well, you know, that never happened. So my safety net pretty much just got set on fire. And it's been a constant struggle since that point. Like, you know, it's not that, like, I've never had a job or anything. I've had some really difficult jobs, and I've always worked my hardest, like, to the best of my ability. But I'm also not gonna kill myself for a job. Like, I'll work 50, 60 hours a week, but if you want me to go up into the 70, 80 hours a week, you know, I'll probably quit, because I'm not born just to make somebody else rich, struggle my entire life, and then die. So, one of the goals I have from starting this little experiment over the next 90 days is I'm gonna see if I can basically do like the undercover billionaire and work my way up from absolutely nothing. Like, for instance, this isn't even my car. It This car doesn't run. The only resources I'm gonna have throughout this personal challenge is going to be a tax return that I filed 2 years ago, and I was in between addresses at the time, so they sent it to the right address, but like I just moved into my first apartment complex, and me obviously living in the electronic age and almost never having to write a fucking letter ever throughout the course of my life, I forgot that apartment numbers were a thing. And clearly the mailman didn't know me because my taxes just got sent back to the IRS, and my sister kind of shit me on this because all she had to do was reprint it, put her address on it, and then like she has permission to sign my name in situations like this and then just send it off. So I would have had almost $3,800 or $3,500 a couple years ago, which would have really helped me out. I could have went and got a car and put a down payment on a place to rent, and pretty much whatever was left, just pay up some more on my rent or bills to make sure I had a little bit of a safety net. But she just refused to do it unless I come to her house, which was way out of the way for me, and I didn't even have a vehicle at the time or a job. That was just a really rough year for me, and I honestly just needed a fucking break. Like, I needed a break so I could grieve the passing of a few relatives. I needed to grieve the end of a really important relationship in my life at that time that had just ended. And I just needed time to get my head where it needed to be in a healthy place so I could work and I could show up to work every day and not have some kind of breakdown, because that's what was happening at that point in my life. Like I was a commercial painter, and I would drive an hour and a half to work up the mountain to Asheville, North Carolina, if you've ever been there. And I would work my ass off, and our supervisors and superintendents would pretty much just treat us like shit. And I had all this personal stuff going on anyway. Like, I was being kicked off of what I'll refer to in future videos as the farm. And my cat's being stupid. But, like, it just wasn't a good time in my life for these things to be happening. And essentially, like, I've just been shit out of a couple $1,000 because she didn't feel like printing it out and signing it for me and putting it in the mail, or electronically filing it. You know, that's all she had to do, and then just take or like take whatever compensation she needed for that out of it when it come. Anyway, so the only resources I'll have is that tax return, which is coming in a couple of weeks, and then whatever tax return I get for what I worked last year, which should honestly be really good. I worked all year at the same place, and I got a lot of overtime. I busted my ass. It was a kitchen in Hickory, North Carolina called Kickback Jacks, if anybody's ever been there. Love those guys. That job was honestly one of the best jobs I've ever fucking had in my life. I could go to work every day and I was happy. I was happy to be there. I was happy to do more. A kitchen is where I want to spend the majority of my life until I die, basically. That's where I'm happiest. And you'll see throughout this video series exactly what I mean by that. Like, I love being in the kitchen. I love cooking. There's just something about being able to take an assortment of individual ingredients, and it's like alchemy. You're taking essences of certain things and blending all of that together down at the end and then condensing it, especially if you're making a soup or a reduction or anything. into something amazing that you can put on a plate, and it's so much more than the sum of its parts. And I personally love peasant dishes. Beef bourguignon is a good peasant dish. You can buy like a half a gallon of wine for $15 at Walmart. First off, that's a lot of fucking wine. It takes like a cup to make a serving for like 4 to 6 people. A cup to 2 cups. I like I like mine to have a lot of depth and flavor. But you take that and some stew meat, or pretty much any cut of beef that you want to. And I don't know why I'm even explaining this. There's a really good video on YouTube, and I believe it's from Anthony Bourdain's No Reservations series, where him and the people from the Hall in New York City show you how to make some of their trademark dishes. Anthony's is beef bourguignon. I can't really remember the names of his other chefs, but the Latino kitchen worker that he has is his specialty was French fries, which actually helped me out a lot at Kickbacks because part of my job was to hand cut the fries every day. And believe it or not, yes, there is a wrong way to cut French fries. If you don't get all of the starch out of those little morsels and keep them from oxidizing, you're not going to have a very good crispy fry at the end. You're going to have a burnt, brown, dingy fry that doesn't really hold its shape, and it just doesn't taste as good on top of that. I believe the Italian fellow was cooking the burgers, strange enough, and the American was the one making the homemade spaghetti. But, each of these guys had went to the countries where these dishes originated, and they studied what makes it the best about what it is, and, they execute that every single time they serve. And that's just something that I'm obsessed with, and I think I'm honestly just going to steal the Undercover Billionaire's idea and try to open a restaurant at the end of 90 days, or get as close as I can to acquiring a building to open a restaurant at the end of 90 days. You know, I'm going to try not to ask for handouts in any of this. Keyword being try, but I really don't know. Honestly, I could just end up making a GoFundMe page at some point. I mean, I know a lot of people do that and they have success with it, but I don't feel that I need to do that. I'm pretty self-sufficient. There's going to be a lot of instances during this little challenge, or this documentative series, where I have to do some really unorthodox things. Like, something I pride myself on is being able to eat no matter how much money I have, and most of the time being able to eat good no matter how much money I have. I don't know how well you guys will be able to see it out the front window, but there's a lake back there. And, I don't... I'm not an expert fisherman by any means, but, if I'm going hungry and I feel like I need to eat, I can fish good enough most of the time to put me some food on the table at the end of the day. I do have fishing equipment with me, which I owned before I moved out of my sister's. And it's really weird because I never thought I would be in a position like this. Growing up, I figured it would be like that first time, in kindergarten when my house burned down, and that would be it. But clearly, that's it's not how it is. I probably could have done a lot more to prepare myself at this point in my life than I did, but I was forced to grow up fast when I was 12 because my grandmother died. And then after that, for a few years, I acted way older than I was because I'd been through some shit. And there was a lot of other family drama and trauma that went on. But, like, long story short, I never thought I'd have to prepare for stuff like that again. And after I grew up too fast, like, I kind of regressed a little bit. Like, I went back into doing the stuff I did as a child, like just playing video games to the point of dissociation and like just being completely into it. Like, when you see those videos of people that are like playing World of Warcraft to the point where like they forget that that's not reality. Like, that's pretty much how me and my dad were. Except I would do it with Skyrim and he was actually a World of Warcraft fanatic. But all of that aside, I guess I'm going to end this video. I don't know. I might not even end up doing this 90-day challenge to see how far it gets me. I might just take this opportunity to record a little bit and show you like the different things that homeless people like have to deal with. Like, for instance, like the last fucking thing I really had to deal with that was inconvenient to me was I've been told by Walmart employees that they don't really care if you charge your phone while you're there as long as you buy something at some point. But the main manager of the store come through the other day while I was charging my phone for a minute. And keep in mind, you need a phone to apply for jobs and keep up with relatives and try to get a helping hand. Like, I can't look for a place to live if I don't have a phone or a way to get in touch with people. I can't look for a place to even crash if it gets too cold during the night if I don't, have a phone and at least some Wi-Fi. So, there's just one challenge that, like, the homeless people from 20 years ago didn't have to deal with. But, I don't know. We'll see how this goes. We'll see what this turns into. One thing I don't see is I don't see myself becoming, like, an active YouTuber. And I definitely don't see myself becoming an influencer at any point because of this, because, I mean, honestly, look at me. But, who knows, we'll see how this goes. I hope to see you guys later, and, feel free to comment, ask questions, give me stuff to talk about, because this is gonna be one of the things that helps keep me sane, honestly. That and my precious little kitty right there. And the lake, honestly. Like, of all the places where you could get stranded and be homeless, like, this is pretty nice, honestly, like, in comparison. Like, last week just 2 nights ago, I was staying in a Walmart parking lot, and they threatened to tow the car because the battery had died, so we couldn't move it out of the front row. But, anyway, guys, much love. Check in with me, stay in touch, stay in those comments, subscribe if you want to. Like I said, I really don't know what I'm gonna do with this. This is mostly just a documentative series for me, and I really would like to achieve
with the goal of, in 90 days, being able to turn this situation completely around. So we'll see how it goes. Much love. Hope you guys have a wonderful Sunday. Is it? Yeah. Have a wonderful Sunday, January 5th, 2020. Peace, guys.